All right, I'm going to start by a plead to you to share this video, please. The Adderall epidemic is massive, it's real, and according to this gentleman who I'm going to interview and my son who's working the camera, they say 90% of the kids in their high school are on Adderall, and even more once they get to college. So if you think this isn't affecting your kids or someone you know and love, think again. This is unbelievable. This was not a part of my generation. I would say even the generation after, but this generation, this is a massive, massive problem. Wait till you hear this interview. Spencer, thank you so much, man, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you're a friend of my son Daniel's, who Daniel and my other son Isaac, 21 and 19, said, Dad, everyone we know takes Adderall. So at one point, they admittedly, my kids have tried it, taking tests. Man, it stinking works, meaning that they felt like they were focusing, right? At least it gave them a feeling of like, wow, this is amazing. Fortunately, because, I educate them, I've warned them, et cetera, something, the grace of God that they didn't continue it. Yeah. But that's not always the case. And I could say, hey, man, maybe we were just absolutely lucky, which could be the case too. But your journey was different.
It was. And, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I started using Adderall when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And the problem with it is that it works too well when you first start taking it. You can sit down and study for a prolonged period of time and not have a problem with it. And then you think, oh, God, wow, this really works. Yeah. And there's no problems with it. You think there's no problems with it, but there actually is.
And you were diagnosed, you were given, like many, a diagnosis of ADD, ADHD, right? Which two of my children would have been as well.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. I think part of the problem is that there's misdiagnosis by doctors. In my case and in so many other people's cases, anxiety can be misdiagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
And so doctors tell people they have ADHD when it's actually just anxiety. I mean, think about this. When I was a young kid, I was in class and I was sitting there worrying about everything. I had bad anxiety. Now, what do you do when you're worrying? You think you're paying attention? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so that's what doctors see. And they're like, oh, this kid has ADHD.
Right.
No, it's anxiety. It's not necessarily the case always. And so I started taking Adderall regularly. And, and I thought it was working perfectly the entire time.
Right.
And it took me 6 years to understand the effects that it had on my psyche and physical body. It really takes a toll on you, and you don't notice it while you're taking it. And that's such a problem because it masks all the problems while they're just being created, and it's a cycle that you get into that's really difficult to get out of. Now, I haven't taken Adderall in 6 months, and I can tell you that when I try to stop, when I first tried to stop, I couldn't pay attention to anything. Right. I was so used to taking Adderall. I was so used to just that routine.
Yeah, so just like any strong drug, you come off of it and, man, the bottom falls out. I mean,
Exactly. And so you don't notice it when it's happening. And then afterwards, you try and quit. And that's why it's addicting. And it's addicting in a different kind of way than regular drugs.
Yeah, just grab her and throw her over here. Come here, Remy. Come here. Here. This is what happens. You come over here. Okay, go ahead.
So you don't notice it when it's happening. Mm-hmm. It created a laundry list of problems for me. It worsened my anxiety. It ruined relationships with other people. And I wasn't my authentic self for 6 years.
Yeah, that's a key point. We'll go back to that, but go ahead.
So I was not authentic. I wasn't Spencer when I was taking Adderall. I was some wired kid that thought everything was going fine. I was getting A's. I did fine. I did really well in college. And that's why you think it's fine. It's because it works. It serves its purpose. But then it creates such problems that that you don't notice until you stop taking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the authenticity of a person is completely, you get rid of it when you take Adderall.
Well, you said something that describes what's this called hormesis. It's a stress cycle. You said in the beginning it works, and then it plateaus, right? So it's working, and then it plateaus, and then it goes the other way. So now it's not working, which then leads to anxiety and other symptoms. Then it can lead to other drugs.
Exactly. And that's the main problem for almost anyone who takes Adderall. What goes up comes down. And so you start taking Adderall, you go up, you plateau, and then you go straight down.
Right.
So people, they find solutions for that in the wrong ways. They start drinking, they start taking benzodiazepines, and it's so cyclical.
Which are extremely addictive medications, which are very difficult to come off of.
Exactly. And so you're getting yourself addicted to multiple things at a time, and you don't even notice that you're addicted to anything regarding alcohol, benzodiazepines while you're taking Adderall, because Adderall masks the symptoms of addiction. And so it's such a horrible cycle that's so easy to fall into.
Yeah, and so you were left with debilitating anxiety, because when you hit the plateau and then the down, now it's not working for anxiety. And then did you reach out with other medications, alcohol? What did you use?
So I used alcohol every now and then. Mm-hmm. Go to parties, I would drink. I used Xanax on occasion when I was coming off of it, just because the come down is so miserable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's so miserable. I truly believe that I have a serotonin deficiency. Mm-hmm. And when I take Adderall, it helps that for a little bit and then makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I'm sure people watching this is, okay, you have a diagnosis, so this is the answer, right? This helps balance brain chemistry. I'm sure somehow you were led to that false premise.
I was. And and it was because of how well it worked at the beginning.
Yeah. What I argue is that, a little bit of cocaine works too. The only nice thing about Adderall is that it's just a longer high as opposed to the up and down of cocaine, but it ultimately works on the same receptors in the brain.
It does. And frankly, if you look at Adderall, its chemical makeup, it is one chemical compound away from methamphetamine.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
it's the same scheduled drug. Actually.
Exactly. And so, you are doing basically meth when you're taking this drug, and it's way overprescribed to people. And so these doctors, they're prescribing Adderall, and it's basically methamphetamine, and they're prescribing kids at a young age these drugs that are affecting them in horrible ways. And I think the problem does lie with psychiatrists in a lot of cases.
And again, I don't want to throw your parents under the bus here, because they were doing the best that they could with the knowledge they could. They and you, I'm sure, were told it's safe.
Exactly.
Were you told that?
I was. Yeah. I repeatedly.
Yeah.
I would have horrible anxiety symptoms when I would come down off the Adderall, and I was assured that was regular, that it was just part of taking Adderall. It was part of my chemical deficiency that I needed to fix somehow, and I was led to believe that it was safe the entire time.
There was a documentary that my son, working the camera, he can actually chime in, because I think the viewers would do great from it. He made me watch. Because when he would tell me, Dad, when I say everybody, I'll say almost every kid is experimented or used Adderall. Very few have it. I would be like, no way, come on, right? Because I know the damaging effect. He made me watch a documentary that I was stunned when I watched it. Daniel, what was that documentary?
Take Your Pills?
Take Your Pills. I think that was it. Yeah. Daniel will find it. We'll put it in the chat. It was on Netflix. Yeah. I couldn't believe. Take your meds or take your pills. I couldn't believe what I saw there about how rampant this is and how it's devastating lives. One of the things they said in that documentary was, you said, like, gosh, it kind of works. I'm able to take tests and focus. But the documentary pointed out, when they actually looked at it, they actually studied it, it gives you the feeling that it works. But when they actually tested it, it really didn't raise the grades.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's
another lie.
So that's the main thing. That Adderall does not improve your performance. Adderall makes you do a lot of work. It doesn't make
that shocked me. I thought it at least did that.
It doesn't make you do better work. It makes you do a lot of work. And so you're sitting there, you're writing paragraphs and paragraphs.
That's a good point.
And they're no better quality than if you were not taking it.
Yeah.
You think they're better.
You think
you
it
said
because
that,
you're writing a ton, and you're like, oh crap, wow, I'm getting a lot done right now.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's creating a laundry list of problems that you don't even know about, and you're not writing any better quality. So the point is, why even take it in the first place?
Yeah.
And no doctors tell you that it doesn't improve quality. They think it does.
Yeah, no, I know. But when that documentary pointed that out, I was shocked. I thought maybe even if it did, it's still not worth it because of the side effects. So you said that, okay, in high school it's rampant, but in college it's ridiculous. What is ridiculous?
It's 10 times worse. It's ridiculous in the fact that I think 95% of students take Adderall.
For test taking, or some are, because they think they're diagnosed.
People take it for multiple uses. People take it for studying for tests. I've seen people take it to go out at night. People snort it. It is such a generational problem with my generation. It's shocking to see. And after the fact, when I quit taking it, it really sunk in how horrible it is and how easy it is to sink into that trap.
My son has always been impressed with you. You're not the average kid. You're a very successful thinker, a very successful kid. So I want people to understand that I'm not sitting across from a dud here. This is a very successful, kid that comes from a successful family. You went to a wilderness camp when you were how old? I
was 17.
Okay. And you're how old now?
I'm 22.
Okay, 22. And did that help? But I guess not, because you went back on it.
I went back on it, but the reason I got there in the first place is because I was taking Adderall and I was coming down and I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I lived in California, so what did I do? I got a medical card. And I started smoking weed.
And by the way, that's the other problem, is they do that to try to compensate with the anxiety.
Exactly. And so I started doing that way too much. I was losing track of anything, my authenticity as a person.
Yeah.
And I was, just constantly on something.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. And wilderness helped for 3 months.
Okay.
I got out and I immediately started back on that track again.
And now you're doing some therapy, you're getting some help. It's been 6 months. Right? Yeah. Yes. So obviously, do you think this time you've got it licked? Do you have a different feeling this time?
I do. This is the first time I really committed to quitting. And so
that's awesome.
It took a while. It really did. It took 4 or 5 months to get back my focus, my authenticity. It takes a while. It's something that you could just, quit right away and expect yourself to be back on track immediately. Yeah. That's not how it works.
Yeah. And I was giving Spencer some tips before we did this. And Daniel, I think another very important video is what can you do to, help with the process, because it does become biochemistry. You have to understand, it's very difficult to fight your biochemistry because now your body needs these chemicals, desires these chemicals. And man, that becomes a real battle, man.
Yeah. It really does. And what I want to warn people about is that this battle is something that 95% of kids are really going through.
That's amazing. That's why you need to share this video. I'm telling you, because your kids aren't right. You don't know. I never knew my kids even tried it ever. I don't know. Didn't know until later. It's like parents don't know. They have no idea.
All parents see is an alleviation of the problems that they were seeing in the first place. So they're like, oh, this must work. This must be healthy. This must be good. That's not the case. That is not the case. I can promise you that.
Right.
And so, you do have to worry about the side effects of this medication. You might see an alleviation of the symptoms at first, but I can't tell you how short-term of a solution this is.
Not to use his name, but another friend that you and Daniel both have in common, I believe he's in therapy right now or rehab or something, but his life, same thing. Very successful potential kid and, is successful, goes to a very, prestigious college, but yet his life now has went through the exact same pattern as you, debilitating anxiety, not sure what to do, all because of Adderall.
Exactly. And so, even though it alleviates symptoms in the short term, it ruins your potential in the long term.
Yeah, that's that's exactly. You know what? I watched him, what you said. You said, you start functioning from not your true identity, which becomes a whole nother problem because then you realize you're not yourself. And when you're on it, you're not yourself. So if you can't get in touch and figure out you're also headed for another big, collapse in life.
Exactly. And that was one of the biggest things for me is, in the past 6 months, I was finally getting to know myself. I didn't even know myself before. I was constantly on something, doing something.
Yeah,
and,
man.
and you're messing with your brain there. You're not your authentic self when you're messing with your chemistry in your brain. It's just not, you can't be authentic.
No, man, that's important. And if you can't find your true identity, you're never going to be happy. So that's the fact. As you go, oh yeah, I'm happy. You're not, because only when you're functioning in your true identity are you truly happy, and you're starting to experience true happiness again.
I am, and it's so lovely to finally find a place where I am happy.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact there's no way I could have found that place if I was still taking Adderall.
I think even parents who put their kids on this, and I'm not pointing fingers out there, because again, parents are doing what they thought is the best, right? But when they do, they go, oh my gosh, but he's so much better in school. It's because he's sitting there. No, I'm sure you were more behaved in school too.
I was, and I was better at home. I was cleaning up after myself.
Right. So the parents go, this is wonderful.
Exactly.
But I think after a while, the parents realize their kid is kind of in zombie land.
Yeah.
And he's not themselves.
The way I was just described is that it turns you into a zombie.
Yeah.
Socially, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you something that my dad said. He told me that I wasn't being. He didn't notice at first.
Mm-hmm.
At first, he was sucked into the, oh wow, it's working, and then he finally realized that his son wasn't being authentic.
Yeah.
And he told me that.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me because it was true.
Yeah, he saw it. Yeah, he's a smart guy. He saw it eventually. But man, then you're down the road and you go, gosh, what can I do? I'll tell you, I always have a thing with 3%ers, 97%ers. 3%ers are people who change the world. They make a difference. They end up a victory over cancer or whatever chronic disease. When they evaluate and study these 3%ers, it comes down to, they look back and they go, I just made a choice at one point that I had enough and I was done, or I was going to do. And so being a 3%er versus a 97%er, where you have a lot of excuses, right? You can tell when people are, in a 97%er, they have a lot of excuses or reasons, etc. But you said something, and I said, man, this kid's a 3%er. You said 6 months ago, you finally just made a choice. You were done.
Well, that's a really good point. I don't buy the whole it's a disease thing.
Yeah.
I don't buy that
either.
I don't. I made my own decisions.
Yeah.
I wasn't suffering from some sort of disease. I think that's a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's not fair to say that. It's not fair to other people who actually have diseases.
Yeah.
It really isn't fair. It's not true. I made my choices.
Yeah.
And I finally came to a point where I knew that it wasn't right.
And
now I'm happier than ever.
Yeah, you're a 3%er, man. Thanks for this interview.
Thank you so much.
And please share the video. My gosh, why wouldn't you? It takes, a second? I mean, just do it. How many kids are out there like you all? And how many parents are out there clueless that their kids are even using Adderall? And then the parents who've got, helped to get their kids on Adderall need to watch this as well. And I'm not telling anyone to stop any medication. But what I'm saying is you have to educate yourself, man. Thanks again, bro.
Thank you very much.
Yep, appreciate it.